All right. Hey, guys, and welcome back to the Mudstuds and Skullcaps podcast. I'm Robin.
And I'm Kelsey.
And what are we talking about today?
We are going to be talking about our struggles. So for today's episode, we're going to tackle a few of the things we have really struggled with during our time as riders and horse owners. We want to discuss the important lessons that we learned along the way, and we want to let you guys know that you're not alone and that we are all struggling with one thing or another when it comes to horses.
So how you doing today, Kelsey? Or I guess this week?
This week was a long week. I had to work all 5 days, so that was super exciting. So I just got off work.
I guess the pandemic is really getting to you.
So yes, so I worked 5 days this week, so I just got off of work and ready to do the podcast, but I was walking the dog and I noticed he was starting to limp. Aww. I can usually pick up, like if we're on a hike, it takes me like, I don't know, half a second before I realize he has a thorn in his paw because my eyes are so tuned to lameness right now.
It's because you're so used to it.
So used to like constantly watching my horse and being like, is she? I don't know. I wear sound. Are all our legs working? So I like checked all his paws and noticed he had like a little sore spot. And this is when I just want to like these moments, I want to be really thankful that I have horses because I have a fully stocked vet fully stocked vet kit.
There you go.
And it's really nice having some of these supplies on hand. For example, there may or may not have been this time when my boyfriend like full on stepped on a rusty nail. Like imagine cartoon style foot on rusty nail.
I'm sorry, that's really funny.
It's not funny. He panicked because he's like, I'm going to get tetanus. I was like, no, you're probably fine. This rusty nail is like sitting out and exposed to the sun. But I had to like clean his foot out for him like several days, like a couple of times. Just to like, because I had all the vet supplies and had everything.
Did you have to make him soak his foot?
We did not soak his foot. We did like saline washes and chlorhexidine scrubs almost immediately, and that we were fine. We monitored his temperature for infections. We like all the things. We iced.
So you didn't make him stand in a bucket, is what I'm hearing.
I did not make him stand with his foot in a bucket. I don't think we put the Epsom salt wrap on it, but we were like ready to. Oh no, Robin, maybe we did. There was a time when I was making Epsom salt and flour paste for him for something, but I don't remember what it was.
All I can picture is him with like the little duct tape booty around his foot, with the diaper duct taped on.
Yep. Diapered his foot, taped it up, vet wrap, everything. Yep. Got the bandage scissors out.
I don't even have like my own version of a human vet kit. If the horses get injured or say the dogs were to get injured, I just go and use my vet kit that I keep in my trailer. Any medical supplies I have is a horse vet kit.
Right? Like I have like a lot of human grade supplies. Like that is my secret to my vet kit is I have a lot of human nursing products that I buy off of Amazon. That's my like tip. Go on Amazon and you can buy a lot of really good products for affordable prices. I mean, they do cost what they cost, but the convenience and having like a good quality product.
Well, you pay for quality.
So like one of the things I have that is a must have is their chlorhexidine swabs. So for like puncture wounds, our horses, it was great for my foal when he got a cut on his head because I could scrub his head out and the wound out without having to like...
Oh, so last summer, Trin had about 3 puncture wounds that she got on her face, and I still have no idea how she got them, but they're probably half an inch to an inch deep puncture wounds on her nose, like around the soft tissue on her face. So I couldn't keep bugs out of them. I couldn't keep her protected or bandage them at all. And what I found worked incredibly well is this thing called EMT gel. And it's this sticky substance that just helps seal up the wound incredibly fast. And nothing else that I was using at the time was working.
That's nice. What is it? I don't think I've heard of it.
I had never heard of it either until the barn owner had saw that I was struggling with keeping the injury clean and flushed out and keeping bugs out of it. And she has her own thoroughbred who is very prone to hurting himself. Like he gets puncture wounds just as much as Trin did. And she recommended EMT gel. And so I just went to Tractor Supply and I was able to easily find it. And it's this really thick, sticky yellow substance. Like it's clear, but it's yellow. And it just worked phenomenally for getting it sealed up very quickly and very fast. And anything else that I was using at this time, I could not get the injury to even start healing. and I was having proud flesh starting to grow. Bugs were getting in it. It was so gross and nasty until I started using EMT gel, and it helped the injury heal from the inside out, which is what you want with puncture wounds.
Interesting. I just Googled it. It looks like you can get it at Tractor Supply, as well as there's like human ones you can get at a drugstore.
Yeah, no, it has just been such a great lifesaver because Trin loves to get puncture wounds in her head. I don't know why, but that's her favorite injury.
She's a thoroughbred. They do that.
I know, but why punctures? Those are the ones that make me so nervous.
That takes talent. You've got to really like find something. It's not just a cut that you brush against or like a sharp object you brush against. You really got to find something and commit to it fully.
Oh, another must-have that I found works really well for breaking up like bruising and clots and stuff is one time back home, Trin got kicked in the chest by one of our ponies, and she got like a massive hematoma on her chest, and we found that arnica gel does wonders for reducing bruising. And what does it do? It like breaks up the blood. It breaks up blood clots underneath the surface. It does. No, that doesn't sound right. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about, though, don't you?
No, I don't actually. Arnica, I can Google it.
No, the arnica gel. We have it in the house. It doesn't go on an open wound or anything. It just goes on the surface and helps break up like the blood clots and the swelling underneath the surface. It works really well on people for reducing bruising and making bruising go away fast. But
I mean, you're right. Like, according to Google, you're right.
That's all I go by.
No, like you're hitting. It doesn't say how. It's recognized as a poisonous plant by the FDA.
That's not helpful.
Does arnica help bruising? Arnica stimulates your body's natural healing process, facilitating blood flow through the area, which helps alleviate pain, reduce swelling, and reabsorb bruising. Is that the word you're looking for? Reabsorb?
Yeah, reabsorb bruising. But on hematomas, it does absolute wonders. It's a miracle worker, I would say.
Interesting. These are both products I haven't heard of and luckily haven't needed yet. Most of my horse's injuries are a little bit more traditional. They're traditionalists.
Well, aren't you special?
Just like a real good cut to the face is usually what I'm dealing with, or like something in the fleshy part of the bottom. But I have a couple must-haves that I have brought over from nursing and that world, the hospital world, which one is saline solution syringes. So they're usually used for flushing out like a PICC line or a Hickman on a person, which is like a tube that goes into a person's body. They're used for flushing that out. Also, very handy for flushing out. Like a lot of times wounds are jagged and they're deep, and saline solution helps with cleaning as well. It's not like what's the word? We're not good with the words and stuff today, are we?
I don't even know what word you're going for.
Well, it helps. It's not very strong. It's like a very mild cleanser. So especially around like face wounds and things, because I keep thinking back. My most recent one was a giant gash down the middle of the forehead and over an eye.
Oh my gosh.
And you don't want anything running into the eye. So the saline solution, while salt water is like not the best in an eye, if it gets in there, it's a lot more mild than it's like some other cleaners or you could use, antibacterial scrubs you could use. So I'm super pro saline swabs.
Well, and saline, isn't it pretty much chemical free?
Yeah, I mean, it's just water. It's salt water. You can make your own. Like if you have your own syringe, you could definitely make your own. I purchase mine because I'm not committed enough to make my own saline solution. And then the second one, for much of the same reason, when you're dealing with face wounds or wounds in awkward places, you can't take a hose and cold hose a face. Like that's just not going to happen. They're like the bottles from science class where it's a squeeze bottle with that L-shaped nozzle. So you don't have to tilt the bottle. You can hold it straight up and it squirts into their face or whatever you're trying to squirt. Like it squirts a strong stream. Get one.
No, game changer.
It's a game changer. And like most of the time I can't drag a hose out to where my horses are because they live in stalls, not a barn. So I can bring like a bucket of warm water to deal with something, but it's really nice to have pressure so you can like rinse something really well. So they're just cold wash bottles. That's all I can find the name for on Google, is a plastic wash bottle. So that's pretty much descriptive. That's what it does. It washes things. With a little squirt. So you get pressure. That's like the key is the pressure and not having to tip it over. So those are like some of my go-tos that I love having in my vet kit and probably can't live without. And with the chlorhexidine swabs. I love the chlorhexidine swabs. The chlorhexidine swabs are expensive, but totally worth it, because when you get an injury that you need a swab for and you're not able to just like squirt liquid or whatever into their face or into their legs, the swabs are a lifesaver, especially for like deep cuts.
I should definitely get some of those. The other one that I have found is really effective that I live by is AlluSpray. And it's like this silver aerosol bandage essentially. And I discovered it when Trin got kicked on the top of her hock. And obviously that's an area that you can bandage it, but it was deep enough that she needed stitches. And so we couldn't stitch it because it's in a moving area. And so stitches would get pulled out. And on top of that, there wasn't like enough skin and stuff there for her to sew back up and together. And I was struggling because she was getting proud flesh on it, and I just couldn't get it to heal until I started using AlluSpray, which was an aerosol bandage, and it kept it a lot cleaner and sealed things in and together, and then it just kept bugs out of it, which was once again another struggle that is always happening, is trying to keep bugs out of injuries, you know?
Interesting. Another product I have never heard of.
All right, do we want to get into our struggles, or what we struggle with?
We should get into the main body of the episode and discuss some of our struggles, some of the things that we have struggled with as young riders, as older riders, as horse owners.
That's you. You're the old rider.
Older. I think you're supposed to say older. I think that's how you're supposed to say it.
Well, eldest. You're my elder. Does that make you feel better?
Oh, no.
Aww.
But it makes me feel wiser.
Well, that's what I was going for. You know, you're the wisest. You have the long flowing white hair, the owl on your shoulder, the cane to whack people with.
Do I get robes? Is there going to be robes involved?
Oh, yeah, definitely. 100%. You can even have magenta robes if you want.
Magenta. Okay. I guess I can be the elder.
Well, I'm glad we got that figured out. Well, since you're the eldest, the wise one, the old wise one, do you want to go first with your struggles since you probably have the most because you're old?
That's actually probably true. But I think that's because I'm the first child. And so lessons were learned and not repeated with the second one. I think that's...
You were the test dummy.
I was the test kid. Lessons were learned, mistakes were made, and we've corrected course with the second kid. So, sure. So my, trying to figure out how even, start this topic. So...
You're doing great, kid.
Okay, so I think one of the big things I struggled with most of my riding career, I guess in my high school years and early college years, is that, well, it's my body. My body has been a big hindrance to me. I am tall. I'm not that tall. I'm a normal range of tall. There are riders.
You're pretty tall.
There are riders who are way taller than me.
I don't know. You're pretty tall from where I'm standing.
Well, that's because you're pretty short.
Nah. Minor details.
You've got to crane your neck to talk to me. So, and the best part is I prefer short horses. My horse is 15'1", and that is perfect. Actually, she's barely 15'1", and that's perfect.
Well, I'd say you prefer to have the barrel on the horse. A horse has a barrel that fills out your leg.
Well, because I have a long leg, yes.
It's because you're tall.
So I am a tall person, and my tallness led to a lot of weaknesses. And at the same time, I had a long horse who his longness, right, he is not, when you picture the eventing type horse, that square body, he's a rectangle. He's shaped more like a hunter, more like an eck horse. And that combination of me being weak and tall and him being long and weak was just, it ended up being a really bad combination because we couldn't support each other. So he couldn't cover for me. He wasn't strong enough to cover for me when I was weak, and I wasn't strong enough to cover for him. So basically what happened is I ended up relying on my hands a lot to get the job done. So my half halt was 100%, maybe 90% hand and a little leg.
Yeah.
But he didn't have the body type where he could recover from that and he could get himself, balanced and down to a fence and over a fence well without my help. So basically I developed really strong hands and he developed a really strong neck and he would rush at the fences. So basically developed this routine where I would pull, he would rush, I would throw my body up his neck, and we would continue on. That was pretty much how I rode a lot of the time with him. I do remember starting to figure my position out a little bit towards the end, starting to figure out how to get more balanced and really getting that idea that my shoulders needed to be over my knees. But it took a long time to figure out that position and how to ride that way.
Well, what is it about your body that makes you so weak? Is it the fact that you have a different like, is your center of gravity, center of balance different than what instructors are teaching you? Is that you just have a weak core or weak leg? Is it things are feeding off of one another that makes you weak? Like, what is it?
I think it really, like, for me, it really starts with my leg and my core. Right, if I don't have a strong lower leg or a strong core, then I have to rely on my other aids. And what that leaves is my seat and my hands. And I know core and seat are similar and linked, but they're also not. Like, when you can sort of separate those two out and get away with using your seat. So that's what when we were jumping a lot, I would sit down to the fences and kind of ride him that way to get him in front. So I would try to put him between my seat and my hands, and there was no core or leg to really push his butt to the jump and get him up and through his back. And so we got away with it at novice. It wasn't an issue at novice. And it started to become an issue at training because we could get away with it on cross country because we could go fast enough, right? Yeah. We could go fast enough that he could jump from his sped upness and me dropping and driving him and then dropping the contact, all of my kabobbles and mess ups. We could get away with it on cross country, and we could get away with it almost on. We schooled a lot of prelim cross country and could get away with it like 90% of the time. The problem came to stadium when either if we were too tired by the time we got to stadium, whether it was the same day or the next day, if we were tired, there was nothing left in the tank. There was nothing left for us to package up. And so we either would come in, like we'd either be first at the end of the show or we would be dead last because we either were not so tired that we were able to make it through stadium, or we were so tired we couldn't make it through stadium. And that was our cycle.
Well, and stadium requires a very different canter. It requires like that short, bouncy canter that you're packaging it all together. And I'm guessing with both you guys being kind of strung out longer and weaker, is that so much harder to get? Whereas that long canter you're using for cross country was a lot easier.
Right. And like one of the things that my mindset has changed, and one of the ways I explain it now, because I was teaching a girl to jump on him, is that like we have to package him up, and by packaging, like envision that you are pushing his butt, not his shoulders, but his butt, his haunches to the fence. Yeah. How do you push the haunches, not the shoulder? But when I was in high school, still riding him and competing him, I understood the idea of it has to be a bouncy canter, but I thought bouncy came from restricting the front end, and I didn't know that bouncy doesn't come from restricting the front end. It comes from pushing the hind end and like corralling that energy. And that's why a lot of times I talk about a circle of energy, because I'm just picking up that circle, packaging that circle up, and we have to be bouncing with our energy versus stretched out in an oval or some other shape.
Well, and a lot of times you hear clinicians or instructors talking about not riding your horse backwards, and riding backwards is when you're taking that energy away and you're trying to create this shorter, bouncier stride by just removing all the energy and just cramping the horse up and together. And that's not the kind of canter that they're looking for. That's not the canter they're trying to get you to achieve.
And that's exactly where I was. And we watched a clinic a couple weeks ago now, and I could totally see myself in some of these other riders there. One girl in particular, she was built like me. She had a beautiful, awesome horse. But she was built like me, and you could just see that it wasn't clicking for her. She had a really great instructor teaching her, and she just couldn't. The packaging idea of how to ride this horse together and soft throughout the course, it wasn't there, despite the fact that the instructor was trying to explain it to her. I don't think he was connecting what was going on. And maybe he was and just wasn't, going down that route with her. And I get that. Like, clinics are a totally different ballpark than lessons. Yeah. But it was one of those, you're listening to him teach, and it's like, this girl has no idea what you're saying. She, like, us long, tall people, we have to be so much stronger than riders like you, who are only, 5'6"?
5'4". Thank you very much. Oh, 5'4" and 3/4.
Oh. You're so tiny.
Hush now.
But I think you are just such a stronger package than me to begin with. I am.
That's right. I'm the Hulk.
Okay, I'm gonna go Hulk. That's extreme. I would go. Could I say beefy? Would beefy not offend you?
Please, for the love of God, do not use beefy to describe me.
Okay, you're like a lean beefy. Is that okay?
I'm like a lean Schwarzenegger, let's say.
If you could see me now, you would see my eyes rolling. I'm
a square. I'm like a square of a person, whereas you're a rectangle.
But you're a sprinter and I'm a long distance runner. I know what really happened. I know the truth. But for this metaphor, you're a sprinter and I'm a long distance runner. That's all the people need to know. Okay.
If anybody saw us sprinting, that would be such a sad day.
But it's that short muscle fiber versus the long muscle fiber.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
what I'm trying to say. One of them is stronger. One of them is weaker. One of them's endurance. One of them is strength. I'm the long, weak endurance. I can ride all day, but I'm going to just be flopping. Like that whole, struggle of trying to figure out how to ride, how to use my body, it just wasn't something that was clicking for me in high school. And it was really frustrating because you watched a lot of other kids who were, in my opinion, weren't riding as much as I was. Wasn't like, they weren't, in my opinion, and I, from my own point of view, felt like I was trying so hard and wasn't making the progress that I felt like I should have been. And I ended up just burning out. And I walked away. We leased my horse out when I went to college. I know you started riding him for a while. He kind of became a dressage horse. And I went and hung out at a ranch for a couple years. Spent my time between Eastern Washington and college, and just I still rode, but I just did it a totally different way.
Well, I think burnout and the idea of getting burnt out is just something that occurs a lot more frequently than people realize. And it's also just constantly glossed over or ignored. I mean, I can't remember, there's times when you wake up and you don't want to go to the barn. You don't want to ride that day because you are getting tired. You feel like you're not making any progress. You feel like you're stuck in this repetitive loop, and every single ride, you're just not getting anywhere. And you end up getting burnt out because you're tired. You're tired of not making any progress. You're tired of having the same ride every single time. And I think, especially with people that look at going into riding professionally, that you get burnt out just riding every single day and doing the same stuff over and over again, but it's ignored. People don't realize it. They don't acknowledge it. And I think people need to be more aware of the risks of burning out and that it's a lot closer than people realize.
Yeah, and I think, it happens all the time, right? Like you hear people, oh, she just grew out of her horse phase. But did she, or did she just burn out because it was a lot of work? I mean, for you and I think it was 6-7 years of being at horse shows and lessons and clinics every weekend.
A lot.
That's not a joke. I'm not over exaggerating. It was every weekend. There were, not in the winter, obviously, but there were weekends when it was 2 lessons, a clinic, and a horse show. Like we were doing multiple things in one day, and I do not regret any of that. That was so much fun. I loved all of it, but I was at an event. I didn't go to prom. Like those little things you just missed. Like I missed a lot, and burnout, and like going to this dude ranch, and it just was what I needed. I just wish I had maybe gotten a little bit more serious sooner, because that was 2011, and I didn't really come back to riding Dublin, my show horse, until late 2015, 2016, really. And at that point, had been out of it for a while, been out of that world for a while. Coming back in is hard. It's a struggle to try to figure out how to fit back in and where to go and who to connect with. But that period of not riding was really what I needed, because I came back so weak that I couldn't ignore it any longer. And that was when I really was like, it clicked for me at that moment. Like, I am so weak right now. I've been riding, but I've been trail riding, and it's totally different atmosphere, a totally different type of riding, trail riding and chasing cows and doing all of the ranch things. So coming back was, I basically went to the gym to get on my horse so I could ride and be comfortable and make things happen, because it's so frustrating when your brain knows what to do, but your body doesn't.
Well, and it's that muscle memory that you know what your body's supposed to be doing, but your muscles and you just physically aren't strong enough to hold it and maintain it.
And that's what it took, though, for me to go, okay, here's a problem. And I spent every ride a good chunk, and I still do to this day. Not that I've ridden recently, but that's a different story. But there's a chunk of my ride every day that has to just be focused on building my core and building my leg strength on my horse, because I am only as confident and as strong as my leg is.
Well, so I've never struggled with the same body issues that you've struggled with. What I have struggled with, though, is with my horse's body and her sensitivity overall, just her as a whole and in her back. And growing up, we always had ponies, and our ponies were pretty forgiving and generous with tack fitting issues. And so while our saddles fit, they didn't fit incredibly well. And so it wasn't until I was riding Trin and working with Trin that I actually became aware of how much the saddle was impacting her and our riding. And I remember going to a horse show one time, and I still didn't realize how sensitive she was in her back. But I remember going to this horse show, and I had a slightly different saddle pad on, so the saddle pad was a little bit farther on her back, and it meant that every single time we landed a jump, she would take off bucking. And so we ended up going through like a triple, and after every single jump, she was trying to buck, and it was just terrible.
It was an extra and a triple with a few extra.
It was a triple with a few like, oh God, moments where you got in super deep and you're like, I don't know if we're going to make it this time. And it wasn't until we got professional saddle fitter out to actually look at my saddle and my tack to tell us just how sensitive she was, and that we actually figured out a situation that worked and a combination of our tack that worked, because a lot of us are out there and we know our saddles fit good. Mm-hmm. We know they're not great, but they fit good enough to get us by. And it took me quite a few years until we realized that good wasn't good enough. We needed to make sure it was the exact fit she wanted. And so when we found the right saddle and the right fit, I just remember watching her relax into it, and like she just took a deep breath, and it felt incredible.
How many saddles did you guys end up going through before you found like an actual one that fit her?
We probably ended up going through 4 to 6 saddles of our own that we had or that we purchased for her and ended up not working. Like they worked for her for the first couple months, and then if we found out that they just weren't working for her, they weren't right. And then our mom's also, she took out saddles where you could like take them out on a trial day basis. And so we tested out probably like 6 or 7 different saddles through a trial basis that we would discover they didn't work. And it wasn't until we went through a saddle fitter that specifically sat us down and was putting saddles on Trin's back to try and find out what she liked, what would work, what would fit with her. That was when we actually found the perfect combination. And it was the Kenton Masters S-Series jump saddle, which has done wonders. She still loves it today. I've had that saddle for probably 8 years now. No, how old am I? I've probably had that saddle a lot of years now. But the really cool thing about that saddle is that it has the adjustable gullet, it has the adjustable panels in it. And so the entire saddle itself is adjustable to change with her and with her body, which is perfect. Now I don't have to buy like a million different saddles.
Yeah, I remember you guys going through this for quite a while. And I mean, how many years do you think you spent, or how much time do you think you wasted looking for a saddle for her?
I think we went wrong right out of the gate with her. I think right when we started her, we didn't have the properly fitting saddle and tack. I mean, so we got her unstarted as an 8-year-old, and she was relatively hard to start anyways. And I think we just made that issue so much more prominent and made it something that carried through us for years because we just didn't have the right fitting tack.
Yeah, because I rode her in the Western saddle, the purple Western saddle for quite a while. And I think that's the hard thing with saddle fit is you really need a professional to help and to really, there's so many minor changes that you just can't see from above and really like understand what's going on.
Well, and the hard thing is you don't know what you don't know. Like, I know that's a dumb thing to say, but you don't know. You're not aware of it. I remember the very first time we had a professional saddle fitter out, she made a point. She was like, hey, the saddle, like the panels of your saddle shouldn't be laying across the piping of your saddle pad because that creates a pressure point. And that was just something I never thought of, that I was never aware of that. And now I'm very aware of it and cognizant to make sure that doesn't happen. But when you're not aware of it, you don't know to look for it.
Well, and what's that with the Mats pads? Isn't there something like why the Mats ones are so much better than non-name brand ones?
Yeah, so like the Mats, thin lines, all those types, they I know Mats isn't the proper way to say it, but that's the way I'm gonna say it, so bear with me. But all of those, they have the naked spine underneath them, so you don't have all the excess material that bunches up along their spine, because you want to keep essentially that channel of the saddle and everything along their spine off of their spine. Like, you want to keep that area clear.
Did you guys try saddle pads, like different kinds of pads while you were trying to figure out what was going on with the saddle fit?
We tried everything with her. I mean, we started off with gel pads, but gel pads, like we had the cavalry pads that were going around for a while, but those are really ineffective because they create an unstabilized base underneath this, like between the horse's back and the saddle. And then we tried the half pads with shims in them, but you can only put so many shims in them before they become ineffective. And then, there's like certain saddle pad cuts apparently that my horse doesn't like. like swallowtail dressage saddle pads, something about that cut creates a little bump of strain across her back that she doesn't like. We have tried everything. It took so many trial and error and just like what is going on before finally figuring out things that actually worked.
And what was it? Like, what did the saddle fitter finally find that was the key? Or was it just the right saddle?
It was a combination of things. It started off with flocking in the saddles. Is that my horse prefers wool flocking. And so you have the various flockings that you can have: foam flocking, air flocking now, but she prefers just plain wool and is relatively soft. She likes the wider back panels along the saddle. That way the pressure is distributed more across her back and not concentrated in one area. And then she also really likes shoulder gussets on her saddles. And it's like, so horses' shoulders have this dip. If you could see me, you could see my hand motion.
Like on the blade or behind the blade?
So the dip in the horse's shoulder is behind the blade.
Okay.
And if you were to look at them, you would be able to see it. And so what a gusset does is it fills in that pocket of air between where a normal saddle would be and your horse's shoulder. And so a saddle that doesn't have the gusset doesn't fill that little gap. And Trin really likes that gap being filled because it allows the saddle, once again, just to disperse the pressure more evenly across her back. And so the main thing that she really dislikes is pressure that's concentrated in one area. Like, it's just overwhelming to her and her senses if there's too much pressure in one area. She wants it spread out across her back as much as you possibly can.
Interesting. Yeah, saddle fit is one of those things that you can get away with it for so long, and then there's going to be that moment where your horse can't take it anymore, or you've got a new horse that just can't deal with it. Because looking back, I think, I think we probably had a lot of saddle fit issues. Not that our saddles were bad, they just weren't great. And that could have easily been remedied if we had just known what those signs were, known what our horses were trying to tell us. We could have fixed those issues a lot sooner.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people kind of go off the guidelines of, well, my saddle fit's good. It's not great, but it's good enough for now, and it's good enough to get us through to the next show or whatever their next goal is. But in reality, getting a properly fitted saddle and properly fitted tack saves you so much time, energy, and money in the long run, because you don't have to pay for the chiropractic work due to ill-fitting tack. You don't have to pay for the massage work because something happened because of your saddle fit.
Yeah, and I mean, it's key. Like, that's where you are sitting. Like, there's no way, like, a bad-fitting bridle is, you can get away with a bad-fitting bridle, but you really can't get away with a bad-fitting saddle because of how important it is to the puzzle and to the piece.
Oh, 100%.
You being able to sit well on that horse's back and them being able to lift their back and use their bodies, and they can't do that well if there's a block called the saddle that doesn't fit,
Yeah, and I think it's affecting so many more people than what people realize, because I know it's still affecting me today. Saddle fit isn't a one and done type of deal. It's something that you need to be taken care of regularly and have a regular schedule for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, saddle fit it's like it should be part of your regular routine care. Your horse's body is changing constantly, and your saddle needs to be able to accommodate that. If you don't want to buy a new saddle, then you should be investing in saddles that can change with your horse. But as you mentioned, this is a whole nother topic that we could
we could go on forever.
We could go on forever about just like saddle fit in general and tack fit in general, because like I also have a huge pet peeve with saddle pads that aren't shaped for the horse's back.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, that is a pet peeve of mine. If your saddle pad can't stay up in the gullet, why do you even have a saddle pad? Because if it's just putting pressure on the horse's withers and on their back, okay, what was the point?
Yeah, I also have older ones that do that, and I just can't use them anymore because they do that.
I have one, and I love it because it's the cute designs, because that's the frustrating thing is the cute designs are poorly cut. And I was like, who is in charge of this? It's pink and it has hearts on it. Like, it's cute, but
oh, you poor thing. It's a tough life out there.
I know.
We're so fortunate that we have the ability to complain about these kinds of things.
Yes, we are really lucky that we can complain about our horses on a podcast.
Yeah.
So the second struggle I wanted to share with you guys today was, I've been trying to debate how to frame this one as well, because I think this could be framed, like what the issue is could be framed so different, like many different ways.
Yeah.
But I right now am in the position where both me, and I will drag my mom into this as well, purchased horses from rescues that came with a lot of baggage. Looking back at both of them, both of them, there's like 3. There's a lot of horses that maybe we purchased.
There's like 5.
From rescues, or some point in that rescue, sort of that between rescue and slaughter, somewhere in that pipeline, purchased a couple horses with a lot of baggage, and I, made that decision to purchase horses with question marks.
Yeah.
And, based off of my morals, which isn't wrong, but they were in bad situations, and we wanted to prevent something even worse from happening. And I am now stuck with a lot of horses I can't ride. And that's really frustrating. So as I have alluded to maybe a few times, my mare is lame.
Poor Addie.
And unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's a lameness she's coming back from. It looks like it's going to be, we're dealing with flare-ups. And when they're bad, you can't ride. And when they're good, you can casually ride, maybe pleasure-ish riding, a nice walk, maybe a trot. So that's really frustrating. And then I have Nim, who is also a rescue horse that we purchased quite a few years ago now, who has a whole bag of like mental issues. Like, he really could use a therapist. I highly, highly believe he would love a nice sofa. And maybe some medication. He is like physically, for the most part, physically fine. Just like mentally.
He internalizes everything. I've never met a horse like him.
Yeah, he is a horse where, like, the thing with him is he is really calm. Like, his natural state is really chill. He's a real chill horse. And so real chill horses don't express, they don't emote a lot. But then our best guess is that he was a Mexican dancing horse before us. And that type of training, if you know anything about how they're often trained, is very intense, to say the least, and very, very incorrect, and borderline abusive, if not abusive. And I can't speak for everyone who trains in that style, but it's well known that's a very harsh way to teach a horse. And we don't have concrete proof that that's how he was trained, but there's a lot of signs that that's what he did before us, being the fact, he was a big white stallion when we got him at like 10 or 11. That was one of the things. So he has a lot of baggage, and riding him is possible, but there's a lot of like contingencies and a lot of rules to riding him. He's not like a straightforward just get on and jog around.
And he's never enjoyed the show atmosphere. He's never enjoyed being like an arena horse or a show horse.
No, I mean, even like there is a night and day difference from me riding in my arena at home and then just standing on the other side of the arena fence. And my arena at home is also used for turnout. Like, it's not a real arena. It theoretically is a real arena that I just abuse as turnout. But it's night and day different. He loves to trail ride and is totally great on trails. But in the arena, he is chaotic at best, and panics a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys were able to. You showed him for a little bit. Someone else leased him and learned how to jump on him. Some of our friends rode him.
Yeah, but looking back, he didn't enjoy a single moment of it. I feel so bad that we were really pushing him to do something that he didn't want to do. That's why I'm so glad that we realized eventually that he hated the arena style of work and that he hated the show environment. And I'm so glad that you have him now and realize that he just wants to be a little trail pony. He just wants a low stress, low anxiety environment just to mellow and be his chill little self.
Yeah, that he doesn't enjoy it. The problem is he's cute.
Oh, he's adorable.
And he's built for it. Like, I think had he been owned by someone who was, maybe didn't do anything with him, even if we had gotten him at 10, or if, they had known what they were doing and, provided good training for him, he would have been, the horse would have been awesome. He would be awesome. Because he is really sane. That's the crazy part, is he is really sane, but that doesn't come across as often as the crazy comes across. And it's not even crazy. It's just big. I don't even know how to explain, anxiety. He has so much anxiety.
Yeah, that's what it is. He gets so anxious about everything.
And he has panic attacks where things that shouldn't bother him. The other day, I think I bent over to grab the fly mask and like put the fly mask on him, and I know him, so I'm not going fast. I'm not going crazy. Like I went over, grabbed it, turned around. I could hear his heart beating in his body several feet away from him. And he's like 18, 19. He knows who I am. I'm standing. I bent down and stood up. Like, so him, and then Addie being pretty much retired because she's going to be lame for the rest of her life. We finally got x-rays on her legs, so I know what's going on, which is nice, and that's a whole nother show in itself, just walking through. The amount of things wrong with her between her fetlock joints and her coffin bone it's a long list in a very small amount of space. So she has a really fun list of not great things going on in her legs, but she was purchased, from the slaughterhouse, from the person who was driving to deliver her. And that's...
Well, yeah, and she was never supposed to be seen. She had a runny nose that day. She was purchased. She was supposed to get on the truck to go, but because she had a runny nose, she didn't.
Yeah. Strangles save her life.
Well, never heard that one before.
Right. When I got her home, she had strangles, pneumonia, and I only knew to call the vet because her temperature was like 104. And I was like, I don't think this is good. So our first introduction to each other was very, that was fun. But she's super, super sweet. She has the best personality. And so with her, with Nim, Dublin, my show horse, who is retired because of arthritis, and like his heart was never in the job, so I'm gonna spend money to maintain him at a healthy level to be pasture sound, but I'm not gonna spend money to keep him rideable sound because his heart's not in it. And then I also have a yearling, which I haven't talked a ton about, Hudson. That was another rescue where hindsight's 2020, that I shouldn't have purchased his mother.
Yeah.
And, looking back, hindsight's 2020, looking back at some of the groups and organizations we went through to get these horses does definitely raise a huge question mark. I think people knew more than they told us they knew. Looking at some of these situations, like I sent you Adeline's ad, how I found her, and just rereading that is, they knew she was sick. Like, and then in the ad says she's totally fine and not sick. I was like,
no.
Little things like that. Like, she's, and people are coming and purchasing horses with strangles. Like, you know that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes these systems get abused or just misused, and where you want to help a horse out of a bad situation, like, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place because you want to help these horses out of these bad situations, but then are you just freeing up their spot for another horse to step into their shoes?
Yeah, and I did that, and that, like, that's something that in the back of your mind forever will be, like, I did that once, and I learned my lesson that that's not the type of organization or the type of rescue I want to support in the future, because I get what they think they're doing, but they're not helping.
No, they're not.
They're not, and it's sad. If they're not there, then is that twice as many, or is that just the same amount? What does that look like that's being, shipped to Mexico? And there's those questions. But because of how I was raised, those are my children essentially, and they will be with me until they die. Like, I can't get rid of them. I can't, they're mine, they're here, and I'll take care of them and give them, the best life that they can have. It sucks that I don't have a horse I can ride right now. I'm actively looking for ways around that, but it's not a horse I have in my herd.
No, I get that. I can't imagine having so many dependent ponies to care for constantly.
Yeah, that's so now instead of riding, I'm out there like with Addie and like filling up her water bucket so we can ice her legs and like soak her feet. So instead of riding, now I spend that time soaking feet and icing legs and grooming, and everyone looks great. They're all groomed and braided and slick and glossy because that's all I can do.
I'm sorry. I can't even imagine how hard that must be to deal with, and just, yeah.
It is, and like the Addie news, we knew she had the lameness issues, but like I didn't get that until last week, the full like x-rays and what's really going on and what the prognosis is. So it's like new news I'm still digesting. Like, and so I haven't.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
It's a hard pill to swallow. In theory, she'll get new shoes on tomorrow and she'll like theoretically be sound and I can ride her again. but like it's not really sound. It's temporary. Like that's what's frustrating with her is soundness. Being sound is the temporary state. Being lame is the permanent state.
Poor pony. And she's so young, too, which makes it hard.
She's so young. Yes, unlike your horse. My horse is 7. Yours is elderly. Just kidding. She's not elderly yet, but she's getting there, right?
First and foremost, I am telling Trin you said that about her. Second, yeah, she is. In May, she turned 18 years old. She's reaching a milestone.
Aww.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not noticing it too much. I am running into it a little bit with, trying to keep weight on her now, and building up muscle and strength is that it takes a lot longer to build that strength and muscle than it used to when she was younger. I'm overall pretty fortunate with her and that I'm not running into any issues with arthritis. She's pretty good, going strong there, but the vet was concerned this last year that she might have been developing Cushing's. Mm-hmm. However, that turned out to be kind of a false alarm. I mean, she still looks great. Her coat looks great. I am now thinking, that's in the forefront of my mind that maybe soon I'm going to have to start her on Percocet or whatever the medicine is, Percolate, Percocet, whichever one it is, I'm going to have to start her on it soon because it could be the year she gets Cushing's, and that's when that whole routine starts.
You can start, I think Smart Pack has a pre-medicine Cushing's. They've got a...
Does it actually work though, or is it just like a placebo type thing where it makes you think that it's working, but it's not?
Rumor has it, yes. Only time I tried it was on a horse that didn't have Cushing's. So my experience is no. But turns out he didn't have Cushing's, so, But I mean, you could try it. I think it's like $20 for a month supply or something. It's not that much to commit to.
Yeah, but it's just such a dangerous path, once you get the whole supplement thing, once you get one, you start getting another and another and another, and it snowballs from there.
That is unfortunately very true, and I will show you my supplement bill, and Addie's, I think she's now at like 6 little Smart Packy thingies, like little wells, they're called. She's at 6.
Yowzas. You got the high maintenance kid over there, man.
Because everything on her is broken.
I'm sorry. Poor Addie.
I know. It's just ridiculous. Like, sorry, I'm not trying to, steal the show, but it's ridiculous because she's 7, and your horse is 18, and, maybe? My horse has arthritis, and she's 7. She already has arthritis.
No, I know. I'm so fortunate with my horse and everything, and that, I know she's 18, but she's still consistently easily doing training level, and I could consider moving up to prelim if I really wanted to, but it probably is not feasible for her with her older and creakier bones. I feel so bad because I have, the older horse is 18, and you're stuck over there with your young little pony at 7 who's already falling apart at the seams.
Sniffle, sniffle. Sniffle, sniffle. Yeah, are you having to do anything special for her as she ages, or is everything just sort of still normal at this time?
No, I don't really have to make any big changes yet. I mean, the only things I'm really changing is just adding more fat to her feed and ensuring that she's able to keep that weight on. But I already don't feed very much sugars and molasses in her food, so I don't have to worry about too much sugar content in terms of Cushing's and that type of stuff, because I just feed grain that doesn't have molasses and extra sugars in it. I just feed her high fat. So that's all I really am doing. But other than that, no.
I'm curious. You've now lived in 3 different climates with her.
Don't remind me.
Which one do you think she does best in? Or you probably couldn't tell because Washington was when she was younger, but I was just curious.
Without even considering her age, Washington, hands down, was the easiest climate to keep her in, keep weight on, and just keep her overall healthy.
Washington, where it's easy.
Well, Washington, the grass there just has so much more nutrients. The soil itself just gives so much more to the grass. And so, yeah, she was younger in Washington and easier to keep weight on, but she was still relatively young when we moved to Arizona.
Yeah.
In Arizona, that obviously we moved to the middle of the freaking desert. We didn't have any grass for her to graze on. All she was eating was alfalfa and grain. And while she was able to get a good weight, she was never the weight that I wanted her at, that I was able to keep her at in Washington. And then we moved 2 years ago here to North Carolina, and the local grass and just grass in general here has absolutely zero nutritional value. It is so frustrating. So local hay here, I would probably have to feed her about 2 bales of local hay a day just for her to get anything nutritional wise out of it. And it just sucks. There's nothing in the grass. There's no nutrients.
Yeah, so Washington has what's called topsoil. That's where all the nutrients are.
Yeah, we don't got that over here. All we have is sand.
No, that's the problem. In Arizona's a desert, so there's no topsoil there either.
There's a lot of sand there too.
Yeah.
So is there any other struggles that you wanted to share today?
Those are I think the main ones that really have affected me the most. Obviously, just trying to figure out how to ride when I'm really tall, and now trying to figure out what to ride. Those are like my biggest problems that I'm dealing with.
All right, guys, that's all we got for you today. If you want to check us out on Instagram, we are at mudstudsskullcaps. And if you want to send us an email, you can at mudstudsskullcaps@gmail.com. And if you really feel freaky, go ahead and leave us a review on the, what app is it?
I think it's that, the purple one, the podcast, Apple Podcast, that 5-star review. That's actually really helpful for us in letting other people know. It's not for us and our egos, but it's for other people and letting them know that we're awesome and worth, spending some time with.
Yeah, so tell your mom, tell Bigfoot, make sure he's in the know. I know he's been really looking out for one of these kind of podcasts.
Oh my gosh, someone just next time you're in the woods, make sure we're on and we'll give a Bigfoot call. That will be our we'll get him. Bigfoot will listen to us. Bigfoot, leave a 5-star. We know you will.
That's our end goal, is to have Bigfoot listening to us. Maybe even El Chupacabra.
My brain is going places because, if we could get a Yeti as well, that would be like the trifecta right there.
You're thinking small. Let's go for the abominable snowman.
Okay. All right. So leave a review so those guys can find us because they're not great with the podcast app, but they read the reviews. I know Bigfoot does.
Oh, yeah. Big review, guys. They read them all the time.
Chupacabra, not so much. He knows more about the stars. So make sure the stars are there for the Chupacabra. He needs those. Not great at reading. I don't know. I think it's because he's got to hold the phone so far away. He can only see the stars.
It's his lack of thumbs. It really affects his ability to read.
Yeah, because he's got to have it. Yeah, exactly. Where Yeti and Bigfoot and those guys can get it up real close and they can read. So.
All right. Well, in the meantime, guys, stay safe, stay classy, and stay in the saddle. Bye.
Bye.